Hello and welcome to the ETManufacturing Big Bite session, and where we invite industry leaders and technocrats as well as the industry experts to share their perspective on the management strategies, the industry outlook, the multiple strategies which they have in terms of long-term plans and short-term plans, as well as the market dynamics and technology trends. So, in our episode, this episode, today we have our guest, Mr. Parag Satpute, who is the president and the senior vice president of Bridgestone Mobility Solutions. So, Parag, welcome to this ET manufacturing show, and I'm sure we'll have a great discussion today where I'm eager to hear your perspective on various facets of manufacturing.
Thank you, Shekhar. I'm also keen to have this discussion with you and talk about these topics. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, Parag, to start with, we'd like to know you have had a very distinguished career spanning multiple industries and geographies. So, how was this transition, and how has your experience shaped your approach to leadership and management?
I'm very fortunate, like you say, I've had the opportunity to work across multiple countries, actually 5 different countries across 2 continents throughout my career. I've also had the chance to work in multiple functions within business. I started out in sales and marketing and then moved into operations and then into general management. So that also gives you kind of a diverse experience. And then I've also worked with different corporate cultures, right? So starting out with a Swedish company and now working with a Japanese multinational. So, first of all, I feel very fortunate, and I think it has helped me grow, not just as a leader, but as a person as well. To give you an example or to give you one perspective, is whenever you make these transitions, either into a new function or into a new industry or into a new country, you are forced to really take your decisions based on data. You don't have experience or gut feeling to go by, and that I think is a positive thing, especially as a leader. When you're asked to take big decisions, if you pause and look for more data to really inform your decision, I think you can never be wrong. So moving into this new kind of segments, new countries, naturally forces you to pause and seek more data. So I think that has been good. And over the years, as I've made these transitions, I have realized that seeking this data, this information really makes the decisions more robust. And I've tried to then now proactively put that into my leadership style. And hopefully that has helped the business and that has helped me to continue my growth.
That's correct. Uh, Parag, you have must have learned some key lessons from your maybe previous roles, or also even you were with Sandvik, right? And then Bridgestone in India. So, how do you think? What kind of lessons or whatever learnings you have achieved in your previous job? So, how are you applying that in your current role? Maybe whatever you have explained yeah, in response to my first question, if you can extend more on that.
Sure, sure. So yeah, like I mentioned, I work now, I've been 7 years with Bridgestone, working in Europe, also running business in North America. And prior to that, I was in India with Bridgestone. With Sandvik, also, I had a chance to live in Europe, in Sweden, in Germany, in UK, and back in India. And over the last 10, 12 years, I've been in leadership positions. So what I'd like to share today with the audience is a couple of perspectives. The first one, which many of the leaders get faced with, is implementing or designing new strategies. What I've learned that strategy execution is far, far, far more important, but at the same time, more tedious and in some cases boring. So what happens normally is companies invest a lot of time and effort into coming up with a new strategy. They bring in consultants, they lean on all the top talents within the company, and they try to design a strategy which they believe will make the company successful. But once the strategy is done, kind of the attention moves on to the next big thing. And I think that's where there is a big gap in business results. So through my career and also through some practical situations, I've realized that the execution of the strategy is much, much more important. As they say, strategy without execution is hallucination. It's just a dream. It will not change anything on the ground. It will not change the business results. So, in the last 3 or 4 stints, when I have had a chance to do this, I have paid special attention to really invest my energy and resources in putting together a very strong execution team and making sure we follow through and see the plans and the delivery right up to that. So that is one big learning which I got pretty early in my career. The second one, also connected to this and also connected to strategy, is there is often companies come up with a new strategy, and it could be a good strategy, it could be something which will help them to grow and become successful, but they do not realize that they need to change the operating model as well. So one other big failure point is when the strategy and the operating model is not aligned. Let me give you a practical example. If a manufacturing company under a strategy review decides then to focus on some niche segments and really move towards a, a high quality, small volume kind of business rather than their traditional business. It is very important at this point to go back and look at what their operations look like, meaning their manufacturing setup, their go-to-market models, their pricing strategies. Those also need to be changed and adapted to the new strategy. And in some cases, it means taking really structural decisions, such as redesigning your manufacturing flows or reducing your manufacturing footprint. If those decisions are not taken and if the alignment is not created, then there is very low chance of the strategy succeeding. So this is the other thing I've learned, sometimes in a hard way, that very important to see that your operating model, your operations are aligned to the strategy. I think these two learnings apply through most parts of the business. They can apply at the overall company level, they can apply at the department level, and they can apply at a functional level.
You have worked in different continents as well as yeah, in India. You started your career in India. So do you find a very prominent or significant differences in doing business in other countries and doing business in India?
That's an interesting question because I have always worked for multinationals, right? So in a way, a culture in a company is a combination of the local country culture and the company corporate culture. So to that extent, it has been easier for me as we have a common corporate culture. When I moved from India to Europe initially, it was with Sandvik. So I was familiar with the Sandvik corporate culture and later with Bridgestone. But yes, there are differences. And these come from the size of the country, this come from the background. If I kind of draw some comparisons between Europe and India, the first time I went to Europe, I was really impressed by the discipline of the people and their willingness to follow systems and processes. The success of the business, be it small or large, is not dependent on individual brilliance. It is dependent on a system and a team working together to deliver the business results. But that means those individuals within that team have to really rigorously follow that system, follow that process. And sometimes that can appear stifling. For me, sometimes it felt inflexible. But on closer observation and living there longer, I realized that that is one of the reasons why those economies have been so successful. I think this is something which we in India are starting to develop, and we should accelerate that. On the other hand, what really inspires me about India is the dynamism in the economy, the dynamism in the workplace, the dynamism on the road. So there is always something happening. And that drives a lot of innovation. When there is a need, there is innovation. So that is great. What we must watch out for, I would say, is sometimes the tendency to cut corners to achieve the end results, the jugaad mentality, which to some extent has been glorified. I think in a manufacturing setup, especially, that can be detrimental because quality has to come above all. As long as we keep no compromise on quality, then I think this go-getting innovative attitude can be very, very useful.
Okay. As you rightly mentioned, the jugaad attitude, but I have visited many manufacturing sites in India as well as abroad. So I have seen the manufacturing, the program which the Europeans or Americans make, or even Japanese. They are very programmed and they make sure that that quality or that target is maintained. But in India, to achieve that quality or to maintain that target, we do some jugaad. But in many cases, I have found it successful without affecting the quality. So that should be, I think, probably the innovative strategies or the skill of Indian people, I can say.
Yeah, I think yes. As long as we can ensure that there are no compromises on quality, and that doesn't mean that you have to produce the most premium thing, but whatever the quality is defined as, then I think if we can speed it up, if we can reduce the process time, yeah, that is going to make us more competitive. So I think that you pointed to the right thing. That can act as a competitive strategy for Indian businesses.
Of course, I can say the strategic jugaad or the because somebody one of the industry captains had given that name, the strategic jugaad. It's a
Strategic
planning.
jugaad. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll keep that in mind next time I come across something like this.
Okay. How do you see the Indian manufacturing evolving in the global manufacturing landscape in the next 5 to 10 years? And
Yeah.
no, before that, I would like to know how the global manufacturing is evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, and what kind of role India has to play in this.
So I think we are at a very exciting time. So we have been talking about Industry 4.0 for a few years now. I think at least 5, 6 years I've been on talks such as this, where Industry 4.0 has been a buzzword. And to simplify, or to just to how I think about Industry 4.0 was the the increase of sensors in everything. Machines got sensors, automotive got sensors, parts got sensors. That was great because suddenly you got a lot of data. That was the first step. But in more recent times, I think with the ubiquitousness of AI, the ability to process this data has significantly improved, exponentially improved. So what happens is we can draw insights from this data, because data on its own is not much use. It's just raw material. If you can turn that into insights and use those insights either to improve your business through reducing cost, through improving customer experience, or by improving quality, that is when you start to have a real impact. So I think in the last few months, couple of years, this coming together of the ability to process data, large amounts of data through AI, and the availability of data through the sensors is really transforming manufacturing. And I think the next few years are going to be equally accelerating development, because parallelly also there is a lot of development happening in design. Digital technologies is allowing designs to be made very rapidly. Uh, Similarly, manufacturing, additive manufacturing, 3D manufacturing is allowing prototypes to be produced and tested in times which are so much shorter than they used to be. So, as a consequence of all of this, we see a significant improvement in products, in solutions, and manufacturing is the heart of that. So, I think it's going to be an exciting time. And to your question, what role can India play in this? I think India is quite well positioned. We have had a couple of decades of significant development in software engineering skills. So as we speak today, we have one of the largest pool of talented software developers, data engineers. But also now, with the improvement in infrastructure and the effort that the government has been taking in bringing stability and creating the right framework for manufacturing, the cost of manufacturing in India is also becoming competitive. So I think these two macro trends, the availability of talented engineers capable of handling data, and the infrastructure reducing the cost of manufacturing here, puts us in a very unique situation. And then finally, I think I have seen personally, Western countries, Western companies are much more open to doing business with India due to the current geopolitical situation as well. So I think we are very well positioned in the manufacturing industry in India to really see a prolonged period of growth in the coming years.
Right. Let's look forward to it. So, how is Bridgestone Mobility Solutions addressing the challenges and opportunities by especially the electric vehicles and autonomous driving?
So within Bridgestone Mobility Solutions, we have um, a product solution or a product platform called Web Fleet Solutions. This is basically a telematics business which Bridgestone acquired about 5 years ago, and it's one of the leading telematics companies in the world. What this has enabled us to do is to really get data from the vehicles of our customers. Our primary customers are fleets. When I say fleets, I mean companies which own anything from 3 to 5 vehicles, vans doing local deliveries at one end of the spectrum to large companies owning thousands of vehicles which ship goods across countries and continents. All of these are fleets. All of these are our target customers. So we are able to be advisory partners to these customers in their journey to becoming EV fleets. So overall, I think there is an increasing interest in moving away from the traditional sources of fuel and moving toward more sustainable sources, EV batteries being one of them. Many large companies and small companies are thinking of making this transition. So within Webfleet, we have developed a product platform called the EV Services Platform, which helps our customers make this transition. And we do that by helping them figure out which of their routes, which of their fleet is suitable to transition to EV. Once we have advised them with that, we can help them in managing their EV fleets by helping them develop appropriate charging infrastructure, by making sure that they have the right charging framework so that they are maximizing the life of their batteries and eventually maximizing overall cost of operations. So again, to the example of bringing together data from the vehicles to our inherent knowledge of telematics and of helping fleets become more efficient is really unlocking a lot of potential.
So you mentioned about this technologies like AI and which is used in data analytics mainly. So what role do you think these emerging technologies like AI or many other technologies like IoT or blockchain will play a role in shaping the future of manufacturing in general and mobility solutions in particular?
Hmm. I think AI, I think I heard Jeff Bezos talking about it recently. And for me, that was the most appropriate definition or explanation of what AI is. I mean, AI is like a layer, it will sit above everything, it will affect all aspects of our life, right? Similar to what the internet did a couple of decades ago, similar to what computing did. So it is going to affect each and every industry. It is going to affect manufacturing industry. Um, we spoke a little while ago about how there are sensors in all manufacturing equipment and all capital goods today. There are sensors in tires as well, not just capital goods, even consumables. But the sensors just give us data. Now, with AI, that is the ability to process the data, we can really draw out insights. And that insights is really helping us to unlock either reducing the cost of production or creating completely new business models. So, to give you an example, um, let me use my Sandvik experience, right? So, we used to sell large mining equipment to mining companies. And the typical way of doing business is sell that equipment to them and they will use it for a few years and then they will need to replace it. But for a lot of the time, that equipment used to be standing still. With the availability of sensors in all of these, we were able to predict, or we were able to, first of all, understand the operating rhythm of this equipment. And then we are able to predict when it would be breaking down based on analytics that we could do. So we turned the business model to say that, hey, instead of selling you the equipment, can we partner? We will put the equipment on your premises, we will manage it for you, and you pay for it when you use it. So pay either by the hours of operation or pay by actually even the amount of minerals you're mining. Suddenly, that changed the business model. It reduced the risk for the customer and it gave us a chance to leverage the full plethora of our technologies. So, in that process, we were able to cut out a lot of waste from the system and it turned into a classical win win kind of relationship. And I personally witnessed that that kind of relationship is much more resilient, much more strong, and helps both companies to really succeed and develop for the long run. And this was made possible by the combination of IoT and the ability to process the data through AI. So this is just one example. I'm sure there are similar examples in all aspects of manufacturing and of industry today. And they're being discovered and unearthed as we go forward. So I think it's going to be an exciting time for all of us.
Correct. Very rightly pointed out. So, what do you believe are the essential skills and qualities required to be a successful global leader in the manufacturing industry?
Though we talk about manufacturing, I think I always believe that the most important thing for any leader to know is to intimately understand their customers, the needs of the customers, what drives their economic engines, what industries they operate in, because that is going to affect the business of the customers. And if the business of the customers is affected, your own business will be impacted. I think that's the number one capability, quality that a leader, especially in the global context, must have, the ability to really intimately understand the customers. The second thing is then be very honest and candid about your own capabilities as a company, what you can do and can't do, your own capabilities as a team and as an individual. And then how can you then make sure that you are deploying these capabilities in addressing your customers' pain points? I think that's the mantra to success, which I have tried to live by and which I believe can make leaders successful in the global sphere.
I will come to the right question, which is the last question, which is like related to your passion. You have been running marathons in different continents, and it's quite consistently, I will say, because I have been seeing your posts on LinkedIn. So, would you like to highlight any lessons from your marathon running which can be applied to business?
Mm. Yeah, interesting one. I've been asked this question once before, but yeah, you're right. For me, running is, yeah, I wouldn't call it a passion. It's almost, I need it to survive. It's like meditation for me. When I have a important meeting coming up or something key that is either on the personal front or the business front, it helps me to go out on a run and really think it through while I'm running. So it really, because when you run after 4 or 5 kilometers, endorphins get released, you start thinking clearer, you have no disturbance, because I typically run on my own without listening to any music. So it's like a lifeline for me. And I've realized there are a lot of similarities to our day-to-day life and to business. Let's take the example of marathons. Marathon running is not an easy task. I mean, I don't think I can do more than one marathon a year. I know there are people who do many in a year, but I think even doing one is quite an achievement, because it's a long distance, right? It's 42 kilometers. Typically, you're running for anywhere between 3 to 5 hours. Yeah, so that's number one. So you need to be, it's something that you don't just wake up and decide to do tomorrow. You need to think ahead, you need to plan ahead, and you need to set a goal for that. I think that's also very valid for a business. You cannot just turn up and figure out what to do. You need to have your annual plans. You need to have your midterm plans, like we typically have for 3 to 5 years. So similarly, like that, marathon running is I need to figure out, am I going to run a marathon next year? Once that is done, you need to set a target, right? What are you doing it? Are you going to try and do your personal best? Are you going to do it in 4 hours, 4.5 hours? And if it is 4 hours, what do you need to do? How do you need to train? Similarly, in the business, you have set your vision, you have set your strategy, your targets are clear. What resources do you need to build for your targets? I think it's quite a similar approach. And then the final thing is execution. You start running, of course, just before, like it happened typically with me. By the way, I ran the Paris Olympic marathon this year during the Paris Olympics, which was a lifetime experience. And I was so excited about it. I wanted to set my personal best, and I was training really hard. But I think precisely 3.5 weeks before the marathon, I got an Achilles heel injury. So this was completely unforeseen. I switched to new shoes, and due to that change, I developed an injury. And that happens in business. The best laid out plans, the best preparation you do can come unstuck because of a natural calamity. Now you need to figure out, are you going to still stick with your original plan, or do you need to make some modifications? In my case, I changed my goal. I said, hey, I'm not going to set my personal best. I just now am going to aim to complete that too if I'm fit on the day. I don't want to get into a situation where I aggravate my injury. So you have to make those adjustments as you come close to it. I think in the business is similar. You cannot be too dogmatic about a plan because the world around you is changing constantly. And then the last thing is, of course, during the race itself, it's all about persistence. You feel like giving up. At the Paris Olympics, I hit the 30-kilometer mark. I was so tired. And then I saw a steep incline for 2 kilometers, and I felt like just stopping and walking, but I forced myself to keep running. And I'm sure in business, we feel like that sometimes. We have been working so hard and we feel the end is near, and suddenly some unforeseen calamities or challenges come up. So I think the persistence to keep pushing through it is something, which I trained for the marathon. I learned through the marathon. It helps me in business as well. So hopefully those were 3 or 4 insights which you gain by running marathons, which are very, very applicable to business.
That's great. Really incredible. Like you shared the story about Paris Olympics. A lot of learnings from that in business as well as from your personal side. And that way, I think you can be resilient in any environment. But that's great. So thanks, Parag. These were the questions which I would like to ask you, and you very rightly put your perspective on both management strategy sides as the leadership side as well as the technology side. So it was pleasure interacting with you, and I look forward to connecting with you again.
Thanks, Shekhar. It was a pleasure talking to you as well, and look forward to our next meeting.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks a lot.